Yay.
Okay, so Scott's running a few minutes late, so we'll end up starting without him, I think. But we'll wait another minute or so. I was expecting perhaps Randy Miles, since we've got the LED sign language on the agenda again.
Any Jeff tonight?
I'm sorry?
Is Jeff going to be on tonight?
Oh, yeah. I said this before you had joined. Jeff's not feeling
Okay.
well, so he's not going to make it tonight.
Okay. Yep.
Be right back. Oops.
Let's try to show non-video participants. There we go.
Are you one of the controls?
I think,
Or if I can share.
well,
When
when it's time, I think Sue is on the line and she
Okay.
can do that, or if she can't, she can pass it to me and then I can
Okay.
do it.
What? I'm sorry, what would you like me to do?
Oh, at some point, when we get to the part where Jason talks about the map updates, we would like him to be able to share his screen.
Oh, okay, sure.
Scott, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
I can't seem to turn my camera on, however.
That's okay. I know what you look like.
Well, if I figure it out, you'll see me.
Okay. Okay, 6:31. I'm going to call the meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes from the September 15th meeting. So would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
All motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, so Carl made the motion, Scott seconded the motion. Does anybody have any updates to the draft minutes for September 15th? I'm all set. Okay, hearing nothing, all in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. So anybody that would like to make a comment about something that is not on tonight's agenda, now would be the time to do that.
Hugh, excuse me, this is Scott. One thing that I did not receive was an email with any of this. I never got an email from you with any of what was on the agenda or any
Well,
notes. So if there's a way to get that to me right now, I can open it up and have everything in front of me with you.
Kathy, are you at a computer or not? Or Carl?
I'm at a computer. Let me
Could you
find
set-
it. No, I'll hit a
Yeah, you
reply
might-
all.
You might want to check your spam folder because
Yeah,
it went to everybody.
Yeah, I never got it. That's why I've already checked my spam and my trash. So for some reason, it was something I never received.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can get that to you.
And if not, I can wing it. We'll be all right.
Scott, I'm finding it right now. Just give me a minute.
The other thing you can also do, Scott, in a pinch is everything that's being presented is on the town's website under the
Right,
packet material.
and I just pulled that up now because
Yeah.
I figured it would be a good way to go, so. All right, thank you.
Okay, so notice no citizens' comments. The next thing on the agenda is to approve the municipal planning grant. So this is a bit of a formality, but what I'll say is that generally every year, there's an opportunity for the town to apply for a municipal planning grant that helps us advance some of the work that we're trying to do at the planning level. And so this is basically a time when before the grant can be applied for, the select board has to agree and the planning commission has to agree. So the select board, as you can see from the attachment, has already signed endorsing their desire to apply for the municipal planning grant. I will make a motion in a minute for the planning commission to do the same. But before we do that, maybe Preston, I'll give you just a little bit of an opportunity to say a few words about what we would hope to achieve through applying for this grant this year.
My convalescence here, I volunteered to be the primary author for the municipal planning grant. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, I think they're asking a lot more meaty text questions to be answered than they used to in the old days. Anyway, it's like a small book that I'm writing. But what the state always does, I mean, we're really looking for the regional commission's assistance with this town plan upgrade, which would include their advice, it would include their ability to produce maps and things like that. But the two areas that the state would like us to focus on are flood resiliency and affordable housing. And affordable housing is very much, housing, I'll just leave it the word housing. There's a lot of different words, but we all know what that means, housing for all. Housing is very much what we want to talk about. Resiliency, we'll see. I feel like there's things that we could do without just going down the route of saying, let's sign up for a river corridor, because I think we've decided in the past it's a step too far. But that's what we're doing. And then the other thing I'll mention, because I have this opportunity, is that Jason put us in contact with a professor at UVM who's doing a class in geographic qualitative research methods. And she's got a team of 4 students that will try to do a case study around Chester and affordable housing and develop a community questionnaire and a outreach event, which they would have done by the end of their semester class in December. So personally, that's just perfect. We don't have to use it if we don't care for it, but so I said, absolutely, sign us up. So there we are.
Okay, yeah, I saw that and I wasn't aware of that. I was surprised to see it, and I think it's great if they'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so really at this point, does anybody have any questions about what this agenda topic is about?
I guess I'll also say while I'm at it, in the evolution, again, Jason can give his perspectives as he wishes, but for many, many years, town plans were just one of those things you did because the state made you do it. And it is really changing. It is really, they want it to change. And I think for towns, it actually isn't a bad thing for it to change. So I have this vision of coming up with a town plan that's sort of formatted like a magazine or a journal with 2 columns per page and frequent use of photos and illustrations and tables and graphs, and could be actually something you might almost read. So that's my goal.
Yeah,
Preston, let me
Of
know if
course,
you
it
need
would
a
be
hand with
great if
that.
the town plan actually had some real, some real true guidance of what we should do going forward, which means, that whole public input part of it. We have to, propose things we want to do and make sure that it's what people in town are comfortable with, or think would be a good idea.
Jason, were you gonna add something?
I thought I heard somebody else chime
Oh.
in, but I was just gonna say, yeah, that sounds great. And, a lot of our towns are looking at, making these things a little more concise and easier to read and
Yeah.
hallelujah. So I think that's a great goal.
Big fan of that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's great. Preston gave me a draft just the other day. I need to review it, but I think it's so far looking pretty good.
Okay, well, with that said, I'll just go ahead and I will make a motion that the planning commission approve the application for the municipal planning grant to update the town plan. Can I get a second?
This
I'll
is
second.
Kathy.
We're all right.
Okay, Hugh made the motion. Kathy seconded the motion. All in favor of approving the application for the municipal planning grant, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay. Thank you. Julie will be happy to keep this moving. Okay, the next item on the agenda is for Jason to spend a little time sort of taking us through. We've seen this probably a couple of months ago, maybe, and we all thought it would be a good idea to, bring it back to the top of the pile, if you will, because the work that's being done at the regional planning level does have a time frame. And I think it's important for us to stay up to date with the progress that's being made and make sure that we're providing input to the process so that we get the best outcome. So with that said, I'm just going to turn it over to Jason.
All right, so I've got some paper maps, which doesn't help you folks on Zoom. So I'm going to try to show you a couple of slides as well on the screen and try to walk you through what we're currently thinking. Nothing's written in stone. Part of what I want to do is review the map with you all, make sure we're moving in the right direction. And I want to also talk a little bit about these Act 250 tiers that are associated with this thing. And I think I know where you're headed. The town has some choices here, but I want to talk about that, see if there's any questions, make sure we're on the same page, and that's pretty much it. So this first image is a lot going on. I'm going to try the top column, those where it says downtown center, village center, all the way down on the far right, it says rural, and there's different categories. Those are the future land use map categories that Act 181 tells regional planning commissions we must use. All of us throughout the state need to use the same categories, and there's some methodology on sort of what they mean and how you map them. So it's not painting by numbers by any means, but we have a lot of guidance on how to do that. That's really all I want to say there for now. I'll touch on them more later. Part of this Act 181 piece is also changing how the state designation program works. So right now, I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but they're going from 5 different designations to 2. And you'll see on this screen, there's center or neighborhood. Those are the 2 new categories for designation. And that shows how they relate to the future land use categories. So again, I'll talk more about it in a minute, but when we're looking at the planned growth area that we currently have on the map, for example, we're trying to make that consistent more or less with your NDA application,
Mhm.
which will ultimately become this neighborhood designation. Okay, so I hope I haven't lost anybody yet. And lastly, the Act 250 bit there at the bottom, that's sort of explaining how the different tiers relate to those future land use categories. And so that, towards the end, I want to ask you about
Okay.
tier 1B, but generally speaking, that's the idea. Just setting the framework there.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm clear on something you said, ultimately, we've spent a bunch of time sort of crafting this neighborhood development area. It's in the pipeline for review.
Yep.
I think this month,
Yeah,
hopefully
I think
this
it's
week.
the 24th, I
Yeah.
think, right? Or something.
And if that were to move forward, you're saying we're basically looking to have the NDA that we proposed map to the two state designations that would either have it fall into center or neighborhood. Am I getting that right or
Yeah.
not?
I think so. So the neighborhood development area that the town is applying for will become in another year and a half or so this neighborhood.
Okay,
designation,
got it.
right? And our intention is to make sure that our future land use map is essentially the same as what your neighborhood development area
Yep.
map is showing, more or less. Right now, it might be slightly different because I was getting some questions from the state, and this thing's evolving like every other day.
Okay.
So we can talk a little bit more about that, but yeah, the idea
Okay.
is it will be the same. It should be the same. So whenever the Community Investment Board meets about your NDA application, hopefully they approve it, and our thing is going to be a mirror image of whatever they approve.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And just for people's awareness, I believe the Community Investment Board is meeting on the Chester application this Friday. So I should have something to share at the next planning commission meeting.
We'll know soon. So that's good. And you know what? Worst case scenario, they deny you for some, who knows why. We have another bite at the apple. We
Mhm.
can do this thing on our future land use map. We'll lose a year,
Okay,
but we have another opportunity to kind of get it right.
Okay.
If we
got
need
it.
that.
Okay,
So.
yeah, I like having sort of a plan B just in case. So,
Okay,
Good
I
to know.
don't want to dwell on our timeline here, but the bottom line, we've been working on this for a while. We're a little bit behind schedule. We want to make sure that the town and the Regional Planning Commission are more or less on the same page, or at least understanding each other's positions on the maps. And we're trying to get a pre-application review with this new State Land Use Review Board by February. So we have a few months. We're gonna, soon after that, they should tell us fatal flaws with what we're doing and give us a chance to fix them. But we want to quickly then get into our adoption process and get the state board's final approval in August. And sorry, I'm realizing I didn't update that timeline with that, but that's the idea. So preliminary application with the State Land Use Board, February of 26. Final review by that board by August of 26. Some of the past, I'm going to skip over this. We were trying to get some outreach through this thing. We have an online map that allows people to, submit comments, but it really was apparently hard to use, or at least a lot of people did not use it. So
okay,
we've been trying different approaches to see what works. Some of the stuff didn't really work that great. So here we are.
so just a quick question. So is that story map and kind of map still up there?
It's still up there.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure if the current online map is up to date. It should be up to date soon
Okay.
if it's not, but yes.
Alright.
It is up there. So we can follow up for those of you who don't have, maybe you all have it now. We can follow up, but those links should be active. If
Okay.
they're not, we can make sure that you get the right links to that
Right.
stuff. Okay, so here's our map. It's a little hard perhaps in Zoom to see it, but, in the center, there's a sort of a darker purple area. That's the village center. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but that's essentially the state designated village center. Surrounding that is sort of a lighter shade of pinkish purple, and that's what we're currently calling the planned growth area. That's looks a little different on the screen than it does on this map. The idea again is to be consistent with whatever the state approves as your neighborhood development area.
Got it.
As an aside, we had some questions about so the state, some state employees are looking at your application.
Yeah,
And we did have a couple of questions about the back lot portions.
of the high school.
high
Yeah, I
school
saw your email on
and the
that.
water tower.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, okay, well, really, nothing's gonna happen there. So on this paper version, we cut them off. We cut off the back lot. portions.
Oh, okay. I
That's,
mean.
I think that's the main, only difference.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense when I was looking at the feedback on that and seeing what we actually submitted, which includes, the whole area, including the back part of the lot that we've already decided we wouldn't develop. I guess my only rationale was, for maybe how that turned out is, well, I mean, we probably didn't think about splitting it, first of all, and second of all, even though it's not, strictly speaking, a zoning map, if we had to adjust our zoning maps and we don't like to split lots if we don't have to.
Right.
So we would rather have left it in the zone that was in with the density that it needs, understanding that we wouldn't be developing the parts of the land that aren't appropriate. So
Yep.
that would be my story about that.
We're happy to change it back. Again, this is kind of like an exercise that
Yeah.
I'm showing you here.
Yep.
And again, whatever the community investment board gives you an okay for, we'll go with it.
Yep.
Basically, I think that would be the best way forward.
Okay.
Okay, so, one thing we want to perhaps take another look at it, there's a smallish, let's see, I don't know, can people see my cursor right around in here? There's a small, purple, kind of lavender looking color area, that's enterprise. And that the intention of that was to be
Oh,
more or
yeah.
less consistent with your zoning and the, Elm
For the
Street.
general business.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so generally speaking, enterprise is generally where industrial type uses want to go.
Yep.
And then there's a little bit the orange
Yeah.
down here
Mhm.
and right in here, if you're looking at the screen. That's called transition slash infill. The thought there is we could either lump it in with like planned growth area,
Mhm.
or we called it out separately here in this case, in this current draft. Primarily because of, especially on 103 South, it's kind of, auto oriented and
Yeah.
that's fine. And we want things to continue there, but we want it to continue in a little better form down the road in the future. That's sort of the idea there. But we can talk more about that.
Yeah, so I'll try to translate what I think you're saying. And that way, if I'm not understanding it, you can clarify it. So for me, transition seems like areas that their sort of future strategy isn't completely well understood, and we're not really quite sure what we want to do with those areas, but we think we want to do something.
Yeah,
And maybe that's
essentially.
kind of vague, but so if you think you can clarify that anymore, and maybe you're going to read the definition of transition, which will help because I just don't have it in front of me.
Nope, that's fine. So, these areas include existing or planned commercial, office, mixed use development or residential uses, either adjacent to or sort of in a new standalone area. And they're either served by or planned to be served by water and sewer or both. The intent is to transform these areas into higher density mixed use settlements.
Okay.
And I think that's been generally consistent with what I understand, or I think I understand the town's been thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
If that works for everybody, great.
Okay.
If not, we can talk about tweaking it. Yes.
Peter, pull the mic a little
Yep,
closer,
yep.
just make sure we get you.
Peter Hutkins, you've got a green spot that's on, I know this lot, and it's one that I have been thinking that was actually pretty easy to develop because you can, the sewer and water are not there, but it's all downhill with sewer.
Uh-huh. Up on my cursor.
Find your cursor. Yeah, you're gonna be,
Oops. Hold on.
it's the north facing slope above the stone village.
There.
There.
My
That is-
cursor's pointing to what, oh, it was. It went away again. It was point, where the heck did it go? It was point, there we go. Peter was pointing to that right there.
Right there. Right.
So
Okay.
you're, I'm sorry, you're thinking that should be what? Maybe the planned growth?
Oh, it should definitely, I think it should be in planned growth because I've walked that whole lot and it's like, there's, although there is one trailer on it right now. It is a place where you're not pumping sewage, which is always my favorite, and the water's at the bottom of the hill.
Okay. All right, that's good. So what he's pointing to is, skip around a little bit.
Yeah.
That's what we're calling rural agriculture and forestry. And there's reasons for that.
That might be, it might currently be in ag.
It might be, and that's
Yeah.
probably why it's mapped that way.
Yep.
But it
doesn't-
would just be hay. I don't think, it's not a, Plowed crop.
There's just golf balls and grazing.
And
Which-
being
which
kind of
lot is that?
isolated, that makes sense.
We're trying to do this without saying names, but.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine, fine. Yeah, I'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
isn't
that-
it
that's-
the big hill on
Yeah,
the
it's the
right
big-
if you're headed north
Okay.
right.
Yep.
through
Yep.
the village?
All I need to know.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank
But
you.
I thought when we talked to those people like 4 or 5 years ago, they would hang us if we said something like we're saying now.
They would hang us.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They didn't want us to mess with their village at all. Didn't want it to get more whatever settled or anything.
Yeah. It's one of those things that has water and sewer next to it, which we don't have a lot of, and it's definitely not in the floodplain. Which is another thing we don't have a lot of.
Right.
Right.
That's true.
I mean, you could at least, if you're not gonna make it transitional, then what's the next color is what? I'm not as good at color as this. Do you have,
So, right now it's surrounded by this rural general,
yeah,
which would be another Another
So
possibility.
won't the new sewer project be helping that if that more sewer coming in, that the new sewer would handle that well?
the new pump station that we're putting in and the pump line would
Yeah.
definitely help
Right.
handle.
Yeah.
Right,
Yep.
Okay.
no. I mean, just make it one step closer.
We can, sitting there as this little kind of blue-green island is a little weird. So yeah, I think we can
There's a lot-
certainly change it to one, and there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
But we can certainly change that.
Well, that one down by, there's a lot of these that are, I see that are in floodplain, but that is like something that is like, you
Yeah.
could develop that. A developer would be interested in developing that.
Right, good comment.
Yeah.
Are there any other thoughts before I keep going through the different map categories?
Well, we don't have an awful lot of viable undeveloped properties for new businesses. So, if there's water and sewer there and the territory and accessibility would be good for business, we may want to think about that because with all this talk of housing and such, we need to really be focusing on making it friendly for new businesses to come in and whatever we may have to modify a little to get them to want to come in. So if that's a viable spot, I would just ask that we consider doing something to bring in more business rather than more residences
Yep.
in that area.
Well, I don't know that parcel in my head, but planned growth would help with business or housing. So I
Right.
think that's a possibility.
The lower part of that, it's planned growth. So you cross the railroad tracks on First Street. And then you have the far side of the tracks, you actually. That's flat enough that you might do something in there. And once again, now that one has water and sewer is also right there.
Okay, yeah, good
Yeah.
thoughts.
I guess the only thing I'll say, since we're kind of looking at the map and I'm just doing the visual thing, you know, Peter mentions this, the one green blurb that's up there. What about the one green blurb that's sort of down adjacent to transition? Should that, like,
Yeah.
what is that and why isn't
Down
that
in
like in
here?
transition? Yeah,
Right
I
down
got-
here, here's your arrow.
So it's,
that blurb.
That's all floodplain.
that is pretty flood.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, there you go.
There you go, right?
Between the railroad and the flood, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, that explains it then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I want to talk a little bit about these rural categories.
Yep.
Because they're a little weird when you look at it.
There's too
Um,
many colors.
So, yeah, there are too many colors and I don't necessarily love them, but so the, kind of this yellowish color is what we're calling rural general. Generally speaking, that's where there's smaller lots, there's clusters of housing, there's development, but not infrastructure, generally speaking. So that's the likeliest spot for, you know, new houses in a rural context, right? Then there's the rural agriculture and forestry, and those are a little bit bigger. They generally have some farming going on, or they're potentially in current use, or they have 20 acres or more of tree canopy, or 20 acres or more of agricultural land. There's sort of those factors that play into it. Rural conservation is the green, and that's either it's protected in some way or other. It has class 1 or 2 wetlands that are 5 acres or larger. There's forest blocks, wildlife habitat, high elevation areas. Those sorts of factors play into it. You put those two together, so the rural conservation and the rural agricultural and forestry, our policy intent is you can still develop there. It's just going to be at the lowest sort of densities, and you're going to want to do protection. So you don't want to fragment the forests unnecessarily, or do something to kind of minimize it, or you're going to, you know, protect the wildlife habitat, travel corridor, you know, whatever, that kind of thing. That's really the intent. So that's a lot. Any questions?
So. Rural conservation and rural forestry, which rural agricultural and forestry and rural conservation, what is the difference again?
There's a little, so the rural agricultural and forestry, generally speaking, are either active farms and, you know, woodlots, or the potential for farming and forest lots. So it's like, you know, agricultural soils,
Yep.
Lands that are in current use for farming or forestry, forest blocks that are like 20 acres or more, farm fields or farm soils that are 20 acres or more, like that type of thing. So conservation generally is not those, it's other, you know, there might be more wildlife habitat, forest blocks, state-owned land, town-owned land, those sorts of things.
Okay,
Well, and so I guess I'll just say this because, you know, it's very easy for me to wrap my head around what we would think about for planned growth areas. It's less clear for me what I should think about if I was just a citizen or a landowner about what's going to happen if one of these areas gets mapped into rural agriculture and forestry or rural conservation. I can't wrap my head around what
Right.
that would mean to me.
Right.
And so
Right.
maybe you can at least And if there isn't an answer yet, that's fine, but let's at least just have a conversation about, that's true, you really can't tell yet, and or it means this, and or we can't tell yet, but eventually we'll get to the point where we have better clarity about what it means, and then we can share more. So just,
Yeah, I didn't bring it with me. If you were to look at our regional plan now, the mapping is different.
mhm,
But generally speaking, the rural conservation and the rural agriculture and forestry here, in total, look a lot like what we're calling conservation and working lanes now. And if you've not noticed horrible things happening to you now,
okay,
probably won't happen to you in the future.
okay,
That being said, generally we're saying you shouldn't have big intensive things going on out here. We want to see working landscape activities. We want to see some homes, some accessory dwelling units, some, maybe there's a retreat or, a recreation center, but beyond that, we want the more intensive stuff in town.
would this, just as an example, so I can understand it and maybe other people on the planning commission can understand it because, we spend a lot of time, with the bylaws.
Mhm.
And so would some future land use map that were in one of these greener areas, would that suggest that our zoning should be looking at larger minimum lot sizes and things like that? I mean, how do I translate?
It would suggest that. And,
Okay.
in an ideal world, I don't think I would map those parts of town based on the parcels that we did. I would personally rather look at resources and be a
Yeah.
little more resource based. And I would also
That would
prefer to
make
go
sense,
back
by
to
the
what
way.
the town and the zone, what does the town plan say? What's the
Yeah.
zoning say? And see if we can but this was pretty, specific in terms of how we at least start the map. So
Okay,
if there are thoughts on that, just makes no sense whatsoever. I'm
Mhm.
totally open to that. I
Okay.
will say, I think that the land use board is gonna be very, very much focused on the center of town. where
Yeah.
The infrastructure is, they're not gonna have enough time to think about the other parts of
Well,
town.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For some of these areas, I'm pulling up the map that are in the rural dash agricultural and forestry. A lot of including where I live, where I'm rural general, and the property right next to me on this map is agricultural and forestry, rural. And
Yeah.
there's a house and a Airbnb there, so that's a little confusing to me. But peppered in between all of these yellow rural generals are the lighter green rural agricultural and forestry. I'm just, we've seen people buying up huge plots of land and then clear cutting them, and people who don't even live here. Are the land use people going to be thinking about ways to protect that or not? Because if that's something we might want to think about, those areas aren't under conservation, and people who don't live here can buy properties, clear cut them, make a lot of money off the wood, and then leave this basically barren waste there. And I don't know if anybody's ever brought that up or thought about it.
Well, it's not certainly something that we want to encourage. The reality is the state are the ones who oversee forestry, and, the Regional Planning Commission and the town don't have a whole lot of say in some of those details, unfortunately, but that's just the way it is. But
But who's choosing the colors and the designations on this map, the state or us?
well, we are given the methodology to come up with the map, and we're given the colors that we're supposed to use. Outside of that, we can certainly tweak some things, and if there are areas that don't make sense, we can change things. So I'm completely open to it, but I think they want the category of rural agricultural and forestry.
Scott, I think it's hard. I don't know how you guys can do this on Zoom because it's easier with a paper mat and changes the common point. That makes a huge difference. There's a lot of, I would agree that there's a lot of, seems like it lacks flow.
It definitely lacks flow.
It lacks,
Yeah.
it lacks flow.
Yeah.
That, I agree. I agree.
And I don't, and it probably the criteria given the person drafting it was any lot smaller than this gets this color.
That is right. And again, I'm open to any, I think, we have these little islands which make no sense at all, right? So
Yeah.
I think I'd like to spend more time with it and just make sure that it's a little more cohesive and just makes some sense.
Well, so maybe, I mean, and this goes to the fact that you said out in these areas, you might have been happier not to have to color the map on parcel boundaries, but that's,
I would have.
that's
but-
kind of a requirement for you
Right.
guys right now. However, if you take the first cut by coloring by boundary,
Mhm.
and then like you said, you look at something and it just doesn't make any sense, then you can still start adjusting the colors to create better flow. Am I right? Or would somebody say, when you change the green one to a yellow one, it says you violated the rule of the program because blah, 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 lot was too small? I mean, is that?
Anything's possible, and maybe, yeah, but I think we do have some latitude here, so I think,
Okay.
yeah, we can certainly look at this in more detail.
Right.
Well, you guys, I heard you say something about that they were focusing most of the energy down in the planned growth area and the village centers and everything, and that the rest of it, they weren't putting a lot of attention into. Am I correct? Is that what I heard?
In terms of the state land use board, that is correct, yes.
Okay.
I don't want to just have something that makes no sense in the rest of town, but I think their focus will be elsewhere.
All right. Well, I'd just like to point out that most of the people who live in Chester live in those other areas.
Right. Right, and I have some other stuff I want to get to, but I did want to just point out that we have some housing targets. And the whole idea is that the village center plus the planned growth area can take more than half of the housing targets, right? So,
yep.
but that also means up to 49% of the housing could go everywhere else. So
Mhm.
that's sort of the way we're looking at this. I did want to just quickly, because I don't want to take up all of your time. We talked about the state designation program. Right now, there's 5 designations. That's going to go to those 2. So
Got it.
downtown center, village center, new town center, growth area, neighborhood development area. That's going to just center the neighborhood. And what we put on our map with you is going to be going to get automatic renewals, right? So you're not going to ever have to apply to the state again to renew your village center designation.
Okay.
We can always amend things. In the case of this Chester Village Center on our map, it should be a status quo situation. What you currently have designated by the state is what we're showing. There's an ability to possibly extend it a little bit if there's an interest there. We haven't gone there, but if there's interest, let us know. And usually you're extending it a parcel or 2 in either direction because there's a building or a project that would really like to take advantage of the tax credit
Are
program.
you talking about the dark purple?
That's the dark purple.
So
yeah.
there's an opportunity to expand the dark purple if we just thought it made sense for some reason.
Correct.
Okay.
So if there's any interest, let us know. We can try to work that into this process.
Okay. It's good to know.
So I'm gonna keep moving. So we talked about, I think, this map already, but this is just a blow up image of the village. We have a paper map in the office. I'll leave these paper maps here. It might be easier so you folks over the next
Yeah.
week or 2 can just
That'd be
check
great.
it out and doodle on them, and I guess let us know when you think that your comments are done and we can take them from there and indicate where we want to make some changes.
Okay.
Okay, so quickly, I think I think my understanding with the neighborhood development area application and other things, I think probably you want tier 1B. But I want to clarify that. I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means. So in Act 181, it lays out these Act 250 tiers. What they're trying to do is create an incentive to get housing built in areas that have infrastructure. There's tier 1A, which I'll talk about it in a minute, which has a lot more requirements. Tier 1B is a little easier. So this is, the town requests it. We put it on a map and we include that in what we submit to the state land use board. They'll approve it. What you get with tier 1B is exemptions from Act 250 for housing projects up to 50 units on 10 acres or less. So again, the whole idea is to make it easier to build housing. What you need to have is a, adopted and approved town plan. You got to have zoning and subdivision, check and check. You're not seeing it on the maps yet, but we have sort of this flood and river corridor overlay thing that we're basically excluding from the planned growth area, if you will. That's
Okay.
what the state wants to see. Alternatively, you could have local river corridor bylaws. But like Preston said before, in the past, that wasn't something you want to do. So we're doing that on the map. You need water and wastewater, you have that, or you're close to.
So let me back up for
Yep.
just a minute to make sure I understand that.
Yep.
So we've excluded floodplain and river corridor from our planned growth area.
Yeah, well, I'm not showing you that, but yes, we are.
And
Yep.
because we're not planning to do river corridor management at a bylaw level.
Mhm.
Is that what, did I hear that right?
Yes, you can change your mind on that.
No, I'm
but
not saying we're gonna do
that's
that,
my
but I just want to make
understanding.
sure I understood the trade-off is we're still gonna be able to get potentially this status because
Yes,
those areas are not mapped in our
Correct.
planned growth area.
you need to either have flood and river corridor bylaws,
Yep,
or you exclude it from the map.
okay, got
One
it.
or the other.
Okay,
So
very good.
we're excluding it
Yep.
from the map at this
Okay.
point. You have water and wastewater, or it's within, reasonable distance to extend it to what we're mapping, I think. And you have adequate municipal capacity. You got Preston, you have Hughes, so I think you're good there. So I think you have what you need for tier 1B. I want to talk a little bit about tier 1A, but really what I want to talk to you and ultimately the select board is, do you want tier 1B?
Well, there's a part of me that says, who would say no to wanting tier 1B? Maybe I'm missing something.
I don't know. I think it's,
Especially if we
I
were,
think it's a
we're
good
already
thing.
checking all the boxes.
in fairness, there are some towns who think they don't want housing
Oh, okay, so if
and they
you,
don't want
okay,
tier 1B.
I wasn't
because
thinking
that
about
would
it. I wasn't
give
thinking
them
about it
housing,
that way. Okay,
potentially, Right?
okay,
So there is that.
okay. I wasn't thinking about it that way, but okay.
So
Fair
tier
enough.
1A, it has full Act 250 exemption, so it's not just housing, it's everything. But you have to have a bunch of additional things. You have to have zoning and subdivision, yes, but without broad exemptions, whatever that means. You also have to regulate sort of the physical form of the development. So you're getting into some design,
Yeah.
details that I don't think you currently have in terms of what they're looking for. You have to show that it's compatible with historic districts, and that's a weird one, to be honest with you, but,
Yeah.
and there's some other, natural resource stuff. So I think, and I think the kicker for me is that, I don't think this is the case with the other one. With this one, they're expecting that the town administers existing Act 250 permits. And
Yeah.
that's a lot.
We're not gonna do
Yeah.
That's a lot. So
Yikes.
I don't recommend this, but I think, except for the
It's good
biggest
to know.
of towns. I'll finish what the other tiers are and then we can circle
Got
back
it.
to 1B.
Okay.
Tier 2 is basically right now everything else. So that's Act 250 status quo. So I'm thinking that you're 1B, and I'm thinking that pertains to the village center and the planned growth area.
Right,
Everything else would kind of be Act 250 status quo.
okay,
In the future, there will be a tier 3 where I'm not exactly sure, but it should be the most remote parts of town. And there's going to be some heightened Act 250 jurisdictions there. State Land Use Board is figuring out what that means. That's not us, and it's not on our map at this point.
okay, so that helps me under, like, my earlier question was, how would I know what might be happening to me in the areas that are not planned growth? And basically is, it's status quo
It's status
until
quo.
sometime in the future, where if you get lumped into tier 3,
Yep.
then maybe you got some other things coming, but
Yeah, it's status quo. So at this point, if
Yeah.
it's 10 units or
yeah,
10
it is what
lots
it
or
is,
more,
yeah.
then
Okay,
you have Act 250 and maybe they'll look at our regional plan policies. But other than that, no worries. Go see
Okay.
your local zoning administrator.
Great.
You know?
okay.
So
That makes
that's that. I want to just circle back. Tier 1B, what do you think?
Well, if I can speak, first of all, I think the majority of towns in Vermont don't have public water and public sewer. So all of this, whether you're tier 1B, whether you get affordable housing, just doesn't apply to them hardly. Chester is just big enough to have that. The other thing is that it was a mere, 5 years ago that our entire zoning and planning presence was Mike Normal at about 10 hours a week. So we've changed. I hope we're going to continue to be changed, but now we have the capacity to do this. And I think that 1B is very much what we want to do.
And I'd say, even if you somehow someday revert back to the 10-hour a week thing, you could have contracted capacity. So it could be you have a lawyer on retainer, or you have a engineer on retainer, or a regional planning commission can help you out, or whatever. I think there are ways to deal with that if ever needed, but hopefully you don't need to go there.
Well, I have to say that tier 1A just sounds frightening. I would
Yeah.
so hate to administer Act 250 from existing permits, would be like,
Right.
yeah.
There's some hope that maybe Springfield will do it, but it's a big lift. It's a big lift. So I don't see other towns wanting to deal with it.
Yeah, and for the record, I have the same opinion as Peter that I've looked in what 1A means, and I mean, the Act 250 12 criteria, I think, they say roughly, because they're all broken down in A, B, C, and D, are like 34 criteria, and it's just mind-numbing to think of us taking that on.
1A looked like an administrative nightmare.
I agree. You are all right about that. So I think 1B is good. Is there any objection to 1B? I do want to go to the select board next, and before we tell this land use board that's what we want to do, but it would be really helpful to know that there's no concerns there. Here
I have
first.
no concerns. I'm a fan of 1B.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Great. That's all I've got, but I'm happy to, if there's questions or you want to look at the map, whatever, I'm happy to talk more.
So just for the folks on the planning commission, folks, does this all make sense? I mean, I know it's a lot of information to take in, but regardless, I think ultimately it will be important for us to understand this, stay on the same page with regional planning, and be able to, at some level, speak to it, if you bump into somebody on the street or people have questions. So I guess the only thing I'll ask is that, take some time to look at the maps. Jason's gonna leave them. I can tape them up on the wall in my office or whatever. But please look at them, look at the materials a little bit, get familiar with the definitions and the terminology. Because I think ultimately we're heading in the right direction with focusing on the planned growth area and tier 1B and being able to create, you know, denser housing where we want it. And that should be part of our core message. And we want to try to alleviate people that could be afraid of the unknown. So that for all the stuff that could potentially be happening in the rural, you know, the yellow and green areas that we don't know about yet, we need to understand how that's going to unfold a little bit and be able to speak to it so that people don't, you know, unnecessarily freak out, if you will.
I think the
So,
biggest strength of this is just, again, focusing on the infrastructure part of town. Just providing the maximum number of tools that we can so Chester can, you know, continue to grow and thrive.
is there any list of what the municipal capacity is? We talked about it a little bit, that the town would become responsible for some things they're not responsible for now. But I couldn't find anything in what we got for this meeting that said you have these new responsibilities. Am I off on that?
So for tier 1A, there would be new responsibilities. For tier 1B, I think it's more, do you have the capacity to manage what you're already managing? I think really, the way I'm looking at it, there is a form that the town will be asked to sign, and I'll find that and I'll circulate that around it. It sort of answers that question, but I think in terms of 1B, it's not a big lift. It's really just, yeah, we've got zoning, we've got subdivision, we've got, you know, the town planner, we got the
Yep.
zoning administrator, we can handle it, you know, it's working well.
So we
But
just say that once and then we don't, like if a project starts, the town doesn't have more responsibilities for that project and monitoring it than it would have had in the past.
not necessarily, you know, I mean, the whole idea though is that if there's a housing project, so 49 unit housing project, it's a pretty big project for Chester. They would potentially be exempt from Act 250. So they're going to only go through, you know, the DRB. And so the onus is on the town to, you know, do a good review of that project, right? And so I think that would be the downside if there is one. But I
Yeah,
think it's
if I
also an
could weigh
upside.
in, my understanding is under tier 1B, Act 250 continues to have jurisdiction as they always have had for all projects except housing projects. Then the town has jurisdiction. So I think that's what Jason's saying. Yeah, we have to step up for for the housing projects, but the rest of them, you know, if there's another commercial activity, Act 250 does its thing.
Yeah, that's a good call out, Preston. And, you know, my feeling about, you know, is there additional, you know, due diligence that our DRB might have to do for a 49 unit subdivision for housing? Yes, maybe there will be, but at the same time, you can't say you want Act 250 relief and then also say you don't want to deal with it. You know, those two statements are mutually exclusive. So,
And I also think with a really big project, you know, you got the town attorney.
Yeah.
And you got us, if you want to run something by
Yep.
us, that's all good. You know, there are tools available to you to kind of help you through a really big project like
right.
that.
Any more questions or comments for Jason?
Thanks for your time.
Okay, Jason, thank you. Close out that agenda item. The next thing on the agenda is to take a look at the updated draft language for LED or EMD signs. And I'm going to turn it either over to Preston or Carl. I don't know which one of you is going to lead the discussion about this, but whoever is, take it away.
It probably makes sense that I take the lead, although I certainly do want to do a big shout out to Carl because he's quite a whiz at doing research and did quite a lot of research on language, quite a lot of drafting, but I was the one that kind of was responsible for the product that you have in front of you. And I didn't go through that painful process of, strike out and underline of what I've changed. So I think I'll just run through it. I'm guessing we're not going to make any kind of decision tonight because both Randy Miles and who's a big proponent, and Jeff, who's probably the most uneasy or reluctant, aren't here. But
Randy is here.
oh, Randy is here. I'm sorry. Okay. Somehow I didn't. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. The way the screen is, I didn't see that. Anyway, I'll just go through the document and say that at the top under general standards for EMD signs, we did limit it to village mixed use and residential 2-acre, which would include the public service building, police station, and the high school. There was some talk of saying all districts. We didn't do that, although we could. What that means is the town hall and the elementary school are not included. But on the other hand, what we added was an item C at the end, which is portable EMD signs, which can be anywhere. So that's something to think about. Back to the first page under A, number 4, the message display area, we went to 4 lines of characters from 3. Under 6, we went from display time of no less than 8 seconds from what was previously 2 minutes or something like that. Anyway, it just didn't work. Getting down to B, design and mounting standards. Under number 1, we made it clear that a wall-mounted sign was not something that was an option. What that means is that it's not a question in the high school because the building's too far away, but on the fire station, a police station, it wouldn't just be mounted on the front of the building, it would be on a mounted structure in front of the building. And I think our feeling was that we just didn't want people to have to drive by and turn their head to look at it. Going again from item B, number 5, we increased the size of the ground mounted sign structure to be the same size as a plaza sign in our current bylaws. And then under, well, C with portable electronic message display is a brand new section. And that
Can I
means-
ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Preston? 12 feet in overall height, that's massive. That's insanely high for a small
12
village.
feet?
Yeah, that's 2 feet higher than a basketball hoop from the ground up.
Okay.
I mean,
I
if
don't know
you're,
what to tell you, except we had 10 feet, we moved it to 12.
Yeah.
Thinking it was the same as the plaza sign. We could try
I'm just
having
suggesting we
12 feet long and see what it looks like.
visualize something, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if your average floor to ceiling height in a room is 8 feet, go 4 feet higher than that, and that's what 12 feet is. That's awful
Yep.
high. That becomes an eyesore, in my opinion.
Okay. All I can say is, yeah, I mean, that's a decision we need to make.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I think about that is, and I don't know what the right number is, but I don't think about the 12 feet with respect to its proximity to a building or how high a first floor of a building is. These things generally are gonna be out in the lawn or in the parking lot or at the edge of the plaza, like whatever it is. So if you went past any, like, so for me, it seems like whatever is the generally acceptable height of a plaza sign that you would drive by that would be advertising something, it's about as close to similar to this than anything I can think of. So Scott, if you're thinking, so do you think 12 feet is too high for a
If you're-
plaza sign?
If you're talking about a sign that's built on the ground, not on a pole, that has an architectural frame around it of wood or stone or whatever. And we were originally in the 8 foot long, 5 feet tall, 6 foot tall. It was if you visualize basically a 12-foot high monolith coming up from the ground, that's going to be equally wide or whatever. You're basically putting up a racquetball court backboard. It's huge, and these signs could be a quarter of that size and be fully effective without taking away from the character of the neighborhood or the functionality.
It's not a neighborhood thing, Scott. It's a school or emergency services building, right? We're not putting these up on businesses or on
Yeah,
houses.
you're
or
putting it up.
neighborhoods.
Yeah, but you're
So-
putting it up right at the base of the driveway for the high school. The 12-foot high sign there is going to look ridiculous. I'm just asking you guys to think about the size of something, instead of looking at a number. Visualize what something 12 feet tall would look like there. It would be massive, and it would be 4 times bigger than it needs to be for the purpose that Randy approached us for.
Well, okay, so Scott, I'll do some homework. I'm currently looking at the picture of, you can't see it because you're not in the room, but I brought pictures of the LED sign that's in front of the Riverside Middle School in Springfield. So everybody should go drive by that sometime and see if they think that's appropriate or inappropriate from a height point of view. From what I'm looking at, the signposts, like the columns that border the either side of the sign, they're at least 10 feet tall. The sign itself is probably 2 or 3 feet off the ground. And then from the bottom of the sign to the top of the sign, not the LED sign, because the sign has the LED sign, but then above it, it has a nice, wooden sign that says Riverside Middle School. By the time you take the LED sign and put, the moniker of the high school above it in wood or something else, you're going to be challenged to keep it below 10 feet. So I'm just driving around, take a look.
Isn't that a pole mounted sign?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Right, but we don't allow pole mounting.
Yes, we do. That's exactly what we just said. And in B1. B1.
Well,
No.
B1, I think
It says pole
Scott is
mounted.
correct. It does say
are-
not pole
are
mounted. It wants
prohibited.
it to be mounted on a structure.
Right, pole mounted is prohibited. So when you have a 10-foot height, Hugh, like you're describing, that's up on a pole, you can see underneath it and it's not blocking the view. When what we're saying pole mounted are prohibited. So if you have a 12-foot tall mass going from the ground up as we're requiring, it's going to look very, very gigantic. That's all.
Well, Preston, maybe we got to look at that. I mean, you've seen the Riverside sign, right?
Yeah, I think we need to look at some other examples of other signs and just measure them and come back and just say, here's what the sign in front of Springfield High School looks like. Here's what the sign in front of the Springfield Riverside looks like. Here's, there's a sign in front of the Woodstock High School where I live. There's the sign in front of the Chandler Opera House in Randolph. I mean, we
Said
can
how
look at a
much-
few and just say, how big are they?
How high
Yeah.
is the sign that we have for the high school now? The one that's out in front for the high school? It can't be more than 5 or 6 feet tall, right?
Well, that's true, but
it
there
doesn't
is a
say
real
anything.
frustration that people don't notice the sign. It's not very
Right,
visible.
but you're if you're gonna have 4 lines of text that are no more than 4 to 6 inches per character tall, having a 12-foot high sign is just kind of really crazy design. It just makes no sense to me, but, you know.
Well, I'll just leave it at this. It did say 10 feet before. Then there was this talk, let's do it the same as what the bylaws currently allow for plaza. I didn't expect this to get adopted tonight. We can come back with a little more information about that.
I think that makes sense. I mean, because a plaza sign can be kind of tall. But I'm looking at this, like this thing that I'm looking at for Riverside Middle School. It doesn't look inappropriate to me. So maybe we drive around and look at signs like that. I don't know where they are. I know there's one in Woodstock, or right, Preston. There's one in Springfield. They're here and there. We should just gather some of that data and make some updates.
And then I guess the only other thing about, we did at the last meeting say that we would like to have a portable EMD display. And we were just thinking that, the town clerk trots out a signboard that physical, sandwich board signboard that says, vote today or taxes due today or whatever. And we thought, well, having a electronic cart would be easier. But we can decide whether we really like that kind of thing or not. And it also would mean that the elementary school could do something similar. And again, we could decide if we like that or not. One thing I will say is that there was a road sign with that was EMD for the Chester Festival, but it was within the highway right of way. And there's a very sharp line delineation that zoning only involves properties outside the right of way. When you're within the right of way, it's up to the select board. So I just want to make sure everyone knew that.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that. It's good to know.
Yeah, it's actually true of all zoning. If somebody, anyway, if somebody wants to add something that's within the highway right of way, generally the 50 feet, 25 feet to the center line, that's the select board's exclusive jurisdiction.
Oh, okay. I mean, when
I
I read the
realize we have some buildings that are within the right of way and we kind of deal with that, but we can't allow them to be any more non-conforming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I read the portable electronic message display section and nothing jumped out at me as, completely inappropriate. And maybe I was, part of me feels like we don't need to, regulate the portable signs quite as heavily because they're portable. They're not gonna last forever. They're gonna come and go.
They can't be very big just by the nature of the fact that they're portable.
Right. And, and I think there's enough, I thought I read enough discretion in the PMED thing that at the end of the day, if it gets out of control, doesn't the zoning administrator get to make them stop? Something like that. Thought there was
That's
some
number
language.
4. It does say
Yeah.
they'll be removed immediately
Yes.
after the authorized period.
There you go.
And it-
Carl just sent everybody a picture of the sign we were talking about. Yeah. And that can't be more than maybe 7 to 8 feet tall right there.
Really? Come on.
Yeah.
Well, you can see it. It's right next to the sign with the two little, what is that, like a crosswalk sign, the yellow sign?
Yeah. It's lower than the crosswalk sign, which is probably about maybe 10 feet.
No, but the height is for the whole structure.
Right. But that's also a pole mounted sign. This is what I'm asking you to visualize, Hugh. If you're going to have something 12 feet high, you see how you can see under it and around it?
Yeah.
We won't be able to do that with our regulations because we're saying it can't be pole mounted. So you could have this thing that just comes all the way up from the ground like a big square or rectangle with absolutely no pass through for visibility or anything. And it might
Oh,
be,
yeah. So I totally disagree with that. I'm
Well-
in complete agreement with you, Scott, about that. So I guess where the disconnect is, and Preston will have to work on this, like the picture of the Riverside Middle School sign, I would have thought that would have been acceptable sign mounting according to the language we're going to draft.
yeah, I don't
It's
think
becoming
that
quite
looked bad.
obvious to me that I
Yeah.
have to be really clear what pole mounted sign equals, because
Yeah.
I kind of think of a pole mounted sign as being one pole with a sign hanging off of it.
Okay.
So we just need to be really clear what that
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an attractive sign. But I bet you dollar to donuts, it's not 12 feet tall. But anyway, if this is what you're talking about, I don't have a problem with something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then we're in fundamental agreement. So we gotta,
I
we gotta.
We have something that can be solved, at least, if we just have
Yep.
to gather some more information.
Okay. Any other questions?
Anything,
sounds
Carl,
like-
you want to add? Anyway,
Randy's got a comment.
Randy Miles, Chester. Yeah, in your discussion with the height on this thing, I think that sign at the River School is perfect. It's framed in nice, it looks attractive. The whole idea is to be looking forward at the lettering and not up. So they really, I think, did a lot of work when they put that sign in as to not go too high and make it look out of place. Give it good visual so that your eyes are forward when you're driving. You can glance at it and still keep your eyes level on the road. So within 10 feet, if that sign is a little over, between 8 and 9 feet, I'd be shocked if it was
There
over
you
that. So I think that is a very good example. And I don't agree with the pole sign. I think it looks too out of place with a single pole hanging there.
Yeah.
I think the frame with either granite or something, appealing to frame it in is really, what we would be looking for in this community as well.
Randy, you just hit on something really important for driving safety, where you don't have to look up or look down. You want to be, your eyes can go up and down a little bit, but that 6 to 8 foot is pretty much perfect for somebody driving. Anything lower or higher is a distraction to a driver.
I agree. And like I said, I think Springfield did a really good job in thinking about all these same things when they decided to put this in. And I think they probably came to all the same conclusions that, this is probably the best sign for them. And I think it's an attractive sign. And I think, the school would be looking probably something very similar on that.
Okay.
okay. A little
So
more
this
work.
this is what I'll say to close this one out, unless anybody has any more feedback or questions. Let's make the goal for the next time this topic is brought to the planning commission to hope that it's buttoned up and we can take a vote on it so we can move on to whatever's going to be next. So we would normally, so we may have a planning commission meeting as early as November 3rd, I think. Preston and or Carl, how much time do you think you need to make the last, hopefully what will be the last round of updates? Do you need it more than till November 3rd?
I'll
I
defer to
don't think so.
Preston, but I think we're good.
Hey, if you guys
Yeah,
want me to drive down to the middle school and do a width and height measurement, I'd be happy to do that in the next day or two and get that information to you.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
Scott, I am, I'm not going to be able to drive for another week. So if you're going to offer to do that, I'd be perfectly happy to have you do that.
I didn't really mean it.
Scott.
Too late. You said it. You said it.
You
Now you
expected
own
me
it.
to say, oh, no, we'll do it. Yeah, all right.
I'll do that in the next 2 or 3 days for you.
All
okay?
right, that'd be great,
We'll
Scott.
get to
Thank
it
you.
somehow. Get your tape measure out.
I already do. Got it in my right hand. Whoops, no, I don't.
All right, well, we'll shoot for November 3rd then. Anything else on this topic before we close this topic out? Okay. Well, I guess that's it. I just need a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion.
Second,
Carl was the motion. Scott was the second. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, very good.